What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the bossupandrise podcast, the podcast for interpreters and entrepreneurs, your go to place for biz, health, life, and motivational tips, resources, and training to help you boss up and rise. In today's episode, I am going to talk a little bit about life and health. Okay, I'm going to freaking get real with you. Everyone is talking about Celine Dion, about her illness. My prayers go out to her. As someone who has been dealing with autoimmune disorders, my heart goes out to her because I do know what it's like to suffer from autoimmune disorders. But one thing that does kind of upset me is the fact that unless you're freaking famous and rich, many people will not freaking pay attention to you. And everybody is like, oh my gosh, Celine Dion, oh my gosh, this person, oh my gosh, that person, right? However, let me triple back. This includes your family and friends. Okay, it's all about the rich and famous, about what they're going through. But when you're talking about what you're going through as a family member, as a friend, they tend to freaking blow you off. So, yeah, does that hurt? I think so. Can you relate to that? So, in my previous videos, if you're following me on YouTube, I talk about and share with you my most intimate moments where basically I went from, being at a freaking banda show with my kids and celebrating the new uh, grandbaby, you know, to the following week being hospitalized. So I ended up in the hospital being immobile. I went from dancing to basically being paralyzed from the neck down. So the point to this is if you are suffering from any type of ailment, aches, pains, fatigue, joint pain, rashes, hair falling, any type of symptom, I highly recommend that you go and get checked. And I also recommend that you put the pressure on your doctors to make sure that they check your freaking results and that they make you aware or put you into some sort of treatment. Because unbeknownst to me, for 10 years, I went without any sort of medical treatment, any diagnosis, because the doctors failed to check my blood results. They failed in so many freaking levels. And the fact is that by the time I ended up in the hospital, practically paralyzed from my neck down, it was because I was not only suffering from severe swelling in the lumbar spine, sciatica, but also my joints, my bones, and everything in between. So it turns out that I have lupus, which is an inflammatory disease that affects the joints, skin, kidneys, brain, heart, lungs, you name it. It also provides you with, hey, a bunch of joint pain, rashes, fevers, hair loss, and when the flares go up, then you can be left, immobile. The other thing that I have is scleroderma, which is also an inflammatory disease that causes hardening and tightening of the skin and connective tissues. So that explains why sometimes I wake up and I feel like my skin is just so freaking tight that I have to like literally open my mouth to kind of loosen up the joints, and I have to stretch, and otherwise I can't move. The other thing that I was also diagnosed with is rheumatoid arthritis. So it's also an inflammatory disease that affects, the hands and the body. And basically my body is attacking itself. It's attacking, my limbs, my organs. And I can't even express to you how painful it was to hear this, and to make matters worse, and that explains why there was weeks and days where sometimes I felt like a freaking fish out of water, that I couldn't swallow. There was nothing to swallow because my mouth was so dry. I wasn't producing saliva. Where I felt my eyes, I felt like I had sand inside my eyes. Well, that is called Sjogren's disease, where my body is not producing any saliva or moist or tears, basically. And, to make matters worse, after I had COVID back in September of 2021, and I was suffering with COVID for almost 3 months, which thank God I survived. I mean, but I was in and out of the hospital, unable to breathe. I lost my taste, my smell, my joints. I mean, and I suffer from migraines as well. So can you only imagine everything that I've gone through? So when people say, "Oh, Fabiola, you're doing it to freaking get attention," no, I'm fucking doing it. Pardon my French. I'm doing it to make you aware that if you are dealing with any type of pain or aches or things that are just not normal, that you go and you get checked. Also, if you are self employed, such as myself, don't work so hard to the point where you are freaking burning yourself out, to the point where you can no longer move, because it does you no good. So like I said, for a week prior to this episode, I was like stoked. I was busy. I was working 12 hours, and it was like, yes, I'm going to finish this year, really good. And then when I found out that I was going to be a grandma, and we went to celebrate with my kids and my husband, and we went to go dance some banda, and it was just amazing. And 2 days later, bam, I ended up in the hospital in pain, unable to move, having to have people care for me and help me shower. And I am just, despite everything, I gotta say, I am super blessed that I actually have family that care and that took care of me. There's many of you that don't. So can you imagine being in that situation where you have to freaking run a business? You still have to pay bills, because the bills don't say, "Hey, you know what? Um, I'll wait until you get better." No, the world still goes on and on. So the point to this is that, yes, I was a little upset because everybody's talking about Celine Dion, and my heart goes out to her once again. But she's not the only one. There's many of us who are not famous and rich who are dealing with all of these aches and pains and ailments, and having to deal with it and still pay bills and still have to, live life in pain and still have to work because we still have things to pay. We still have overhead. We still have rent, mortgage, and so on and so forth. So I just want to tell you that it's okay if nobody shows you that they freaking care. As long as you care for yourself and give yourself some self love. Like my daughter said, self love is the most important thing. And you have to love yourself before you can love anybody else, and before anybody else can love you. So you need to take care of yourself. You need to learn how to read your body. You need to learn to seek help, because no one else is going to do it for you. Like I said, and I'll repeat it again, I am super blessed to have a family that cares for me, to take care of me, and to be there for me, because there's many of you that don't have that same um, blessing. But it's still time for you to start thinking about, what you're doing in your life, what you need to change, what you need to fix, how to, handle your life, your business, your health. Because without health, there's nothing. There's nothing. And so to live life in pain is a journey in its own. But to live life in pain and still have to, deal with the business and the daily struggles and challenges, that's a whole freaking ball game. And at the end of the day, no money in the world, here's Celine Dion with, I'm sure she has a bunch of money and beautiful house and this and that, but no money in the world is going to take away that pain that you feel when these triggers flare up. Let me know in the comments if this resonates, if this helped you. Oh, and lastly but not least, if you have any type of ailment like an autoimmune disorder, and you are basically using powder proteins, what I was told is that every freaking powder protein on the planet has a chemical that is very, very harmful for those of us who have autoimmune disorders. It basically makes our autoimmune disorders flare up. And that's why you feel probably the bloating, the achy pains, the tiredness, and probably are getting rashes on your face, on your legs, you know, because you are having some sort of flare up and your body is freaking attacking yourself. It's attacking itself and it's letting you know, hey, something's wrong, something's not right. So you got to go get it checked. So if that sounds like you got to stop. You got to stop and terminate the freaking protein powders. That's what I did. I removed all of that from my diet. I also changed my diet. I'm trying to sleep at least my 8 hours every single day. I am trying to eat healthier, basically checking the environments, making sure that I'm free of dust, that, the pollen and all of this, although it's hard, especially here in California, but we got to try our best to make sure that we keep ourselves healthy. And like I always say, I end this up with let's continue to boss up and rise. Hey everyone, welcome to the Boss Up and Rise podcast, a podcast for interpreters and aspiring entrepreneurs. This is your go-to place for business, interpreting, life, health, and motivational tips to help you boss up and rise.